been trying to do this a couple of times. My dog has decided she wants to participate, and that's hard to turn around and say, you can't participate. So I wanted to talk about colonization. The more you think about it, if you really are open-minded, the more you think about it, we're all colonized. I never heard the term until actually I heard the term, I'm going to decolonize myself. And I got to think about that. Somebody said that to me, a native guy in my travels. And I thought, how are you going to get Mickey Mouse out of your brain? It's a very complicated concept, and so often, we get these catchphrases that really we think apply to a great idea, but they don't really cover. This one doesn't really cover, the trauma of the indigenous peoples of the world. Not only the trauma of the physical abuse, but the historical records of the demise of some of these people. Colonization, for me, and I was taught that I don't teach about you, I teach about what I know. And so, having said that, I think my colonization began at my first experience in school. And that would be, the idea of time, setting me up for the idea of being on time and, coming out of a society where my grandpa, told stories to me all day, or I went out into the woods and I didn't really understand, the importance of time. And I was maybe 5 or 6 years old. I mean, geez. But at that, colonization, my family, I'm a 4th generation boarding school, which means is that my family has been colonized, strict colonization from living out in the hills to living in a house. I'm 4 generations. 5 if you talk about my grandpa's grandpa. And so what I wanted to say is colonization is really an intense term. You're going to say, I'm going to decolonize myself. That means you're going to take all of the trauma handed down and get rid of it. And I don't believe that's possible. So I won't drag that into the world. But what I want to get at is that in my travels, I heard lots of things about, going back and reactivating the culture. Great idea. But you don't reactivate the culture. Your culture evolves and it takes on new life, and it presents new struggles or new obstacles or new tools that you can use. And we certainly, as a native indigenous group, we certainly have taken on the new tools that we've been given. So we're not, reactivating a culture that, so often you think about it. It was in the 60s, and we were going to college, and we were wanting to get some of these elders to come up and talk about their experiences. And what we then got were, it was still European history of the Native American. And I took classes again later in my life, and it hadn't changed much. So the history that we've been given and we're handed down, and so we're saying we're activating culture, is, what culture are you reactivating? Is it something that has been long gone and past for 100 years? If so, then consider the idea that it's an evolution of an older concept. The other thing I wanted to get around about was, the colonization of our history. The women, in Native American women's history, it's a shame what wasn't studied and what wasn't handed down and what wasn't important to the historian at the time. Because we've lost a great deal of their knowledge and their compassion. So that's a tragedy. We can't go and learn something that was lost. We have to go and start over. Now, we also talk about so often, I've traveled to many reservations, and I have to say I also went to South America and into Mexico. I didn't go into Central America, but I was into South America. Those are Native Americans. And somewhere along the line, the United States has claimed the title of America for North, South, and Central America. And it seems like we've identified with Native Americans only being in the United States, and that's not true. Native Americans go from where Sarah Palin can see Russia right down the backbone, clear down to the tip of where she would be able to see South America. Antarctica. Sorry. But as the peopling of the country, as North and South America, we have to remember that there weren't states and there weren't countries back then. Land was in front of you, on the sides of you, and behind you. That's where the land was. It was underneath your feet. And people migrated, people moved, people came in boats. Who knows how they got here? The danger of so many historians is that they want to claim the thought that these are the original people, like the original people in Africa. And we don't need that. In all my travels in talking to oral historians and tribal historians and cultural preservationists, they were so eager to tell me the story of the beginning of their tribe or their group. As was my grandpa. My grandpa told me, the Santee, my grandpa was Santee. He told me the story of the beginning. And my grandma, his wife, my grandma, she was Crow, but she was put into boarding school when she was 4. And mind you, that it was not allowed in the household being an Indian. It was a very strict household. So when they lived with us, or we lived with them, I believe they lived with us, being an Indian was on the outside of the house. It was not allowed in the house. And so, anyway, she didn't know those kinds of stories, so I asked some of my relatives. Danny Olduch was he had a great story of the beginning, and as well as a story of a migration, which was incredible, the detail. And, I went and I talked with my clan relative, Lawrence Flatlip, and I asked him, and he had a story of the beginning. And he had a story of a migration and a second migration that was done. It was a beautiful story, and I heard my Uncle Joe Medicine Crow tell that story. But I never heard them tell a story of them not being from where we are. I never heard a story at any of the tribal people. I never heard a story where their beginning story started somewhere else and they had this epic journey. And by listening to my elders, I know those stories would have been embedded in that, the history of those people, and it is not. So I have to, wonder if it's true that some of these people came, maybe we were here to receive them. But when people try to justify that Native Americans, both South and North, came across one way or canoed on another way, when they claim that is the only way or that was the first way, those are mistakes. There's no data to back that, so you should just quit saying those things. My idea is that that will help begin the evolution of decolonizing the native people. We've been taught by the non-native people, the non-indigenous people, is that we've been inferior and that we came as seeped in from some swamp or something. But actually, if you listen to the elders talk about the stories at the beginning, you hear the reverence that's been handed down from the beginning, and you hear it in their voices. So that's my thought on decolonization. Stereotyping is in there. You can never get Mickey Mouse out of your mind once you see that thing. So, go forward. That's the idea about how your culture, you will blossom into a new flower for this time. One other thing I want you to think about is that we didn't understand your concept of time. And so when we say we're from here, it also means in this moment. So keep in mind, let go of some of the stereotypes that people have historically taught you about Indians. This is Native American Indian month, I guess, Heritage Month. So that's why I wanted to do this video. If we would look to all of the people to help, the people would help. But, we cannot just stay down listening to the stories that have been made up about us. So remember, I'm 4 generations boarding school, and this is what you're going to look like if you're not careful. Hey, happy Native American month, huh?